I love drinking from this Jeff Gordon mug. I found it at a thrift store, and during the early 2000s, this dude in NASCAR used to be a household name. Now, I haven't watched like a lick of NASCAR in my life, but I went, how things used to be. And you see, for me, like going to thrift stores, I love shopping secondhand because every object is like an antique, a treasure. It has soul to it. It's a story. And you always wonder, like, what's the story behind this object? Who had this? Who turned it in? And speaking of my thrifting experience and old things, old ideas with soul to them, that's Hell Is Us. Hell Is Us is a game I did not expect to play, but when I got the review code offer and it gave me a lot of time to actually sink my teeth into it, I figured, hey, why not tee this one up, give it a shot, see how it goes. Boy, am I glad I did that. It never looked like a bad game, just September's a really busy month, but this is one you might want to make some time for. I say that because Hell Is Us delivers one of the more unique narrative structures that you've seen in a game. It's one that is a bygone way of doing things, completely leaving it up to you, the player, to figure out every bit of this narrative. There's no quest markers, no exclamation points above people's heads. There's no guidance tools. There's no telling you what to do. There's no companions barking in your ear on what you should be doing next. There's zero guidance in this game. No maps, no exposition, nothing. It just leaves you to your own devices to figure it all out. And that means it's not going to be for everybody, even if the combat tries to be a lot more accessible, and it is accessible, and it is fun, but it doesn't mean that's going to be enough to pull you in. But if this narrative structure sounds fresh to you, then what you're looking at here is one of the most refreshing games to come out in 2025. It's another AA gem. It's $50, and yeah, it comes with its issues, but I do think the strengths outweigh its weaknesses. Anyway, too long, didn't read. Hell Is Us is like an antique. It may remind you of games you played many, many years ago, and if you get down with that for $50, you might have one of your favorite games of the year. Let's start breaking it down. Frame one, man, like first cutscene, I think this game completely grabs hold of you. It just immediately sets the tone with its mystery, its excellent voice performance, and not all cutscenes are like this. Many of the game's cutscenes are in-game or just conversations happening in the overworld with very low animation quality. Again, it's AA. But when they do push it with these types of cutscenes, it's like an immediate hook every time. And it's funny because to review this game, I need to talk about the story because like that's the best part of all of this. Not just, oh, it's a great narrative. Like, yeah, it is, but it's the narrative structure and how you unpack it in so many different ways that makes it special. So I'll be very light on story details here because truly, like from the beginning of the game, every discovery is absolutely a part of your experience. So I will keep it very, very vague. You're going to get the very general idea here. You won't even get your main character's name or anything about him. I'm going to leave that all up to you. All I'll say is this. There's a war going on. It's happening between two different sides that are very similar, but have very different ideology. And as expected with the brutality of war, the world that's depicted within Hell Is Us is a dark, depressing one. Like if I were to make a comparison, it's that kind of Silent Hill 2 relentless depression. Like it's just always on your back. You're always feeling weighted down. And that's because there's an eerie soundtrack always droning on in the background. And it is powerful. It adds so much character to this world. It's one of my favorite soundtracks of the year. It's just such a ambience. It's such a vibe. It's, again, very powerful. But all of this is accompanied by families that have been separated or people with lots of regrets of what happened leading into the war, how they've lost loved ones in this war. And it's never done in this corny way. It feels very believable. And it's in those conversations you have with those people. It reminds me a little bit of Vampire, where hearing the deeper reflections of even the most random NPCs in these games is the highlight, because you just get to hear them think and ponder on things like the war. This is one of the few games where every time I'm handed a dialogue option, I exhaust every single one of them because I'm trying to not only unpack the mystery to the best of my abilities, but even when you go and ask these characters just general questions about what do you think of this civil war? What do you think of this side or the other? Just hearing how they react, getting a feeling of where they're placed in this world. And not everyone's like, oh, I hope the war ends, or, oh, we should all get along. Like, there are people who just hate. There are people who just hate. There are people who think they're rightfully angry. There are people who are trying to be more sympathetic. There's people who want to stay out of it. There's people who are looking after themselves. It's a very deep reflection of how many people deal with the realities of war, whether or not they're actually involved with the reason the war is happening. Now, Hell Is Us is broken up into multiple zones that you'll be able to travel across via your APC, and these zones are densely packed with their own narrative secrets and a web that connects it all. Your primary means of getting around is going to be on foot, and you'll be able to unpack all of this however you want. So you just kind of get dropped in and you go. And the game has really great draw distance detail as well. So it's not even just working off of shapes. Like, I always found it very impressive on a technical level for a AA game, how much detail is in the town at the distance, or how much detail is in the abbey at the distance. Landmarks like these are very easy to identify, and that's extremely important because it is your primary means of getting around. More on that in a little bit. As you're roaming these zones, you're going to meet all sorts of characters, and you'll be able to help them out in what the game calls good deeds. It's a simple system, but it's really effective. By committing your brain to these characters, you get to have the many aha moments that today's titles rob you of, because a companion's going to yell out the answer before you even think of anything. So maybe, for example, you find a teddy bear out in the open world, and you remember a guy you met earlier was very sad about his son who passed away. He mentioned, I just want something to remember this boy by. That sticks out in your head. So you seek him out. You go to him, you hand him the teddy bear, and you have this very emotional, genuine reaction to the teddy bear that you're handing over. And in that, this person grows a little bit, and they don't usually, honestly, almost every time reward you. The reward is the personal satisfaction of solving the mystery. And don't get it twisted, you eventually get a little bit of a reward, but sometimes your reward is like another piece to another puzzle. Like, hey, I gave you the teddy bear, you gave me something in return. Now I've got this object. I'm going to go take this to someone else that I think this might be for, or I'm going to stash this for later. It's a game that, given the constant circulation of investigation items, you're always paying very close attention to the things people want or the things they say in passing. And I find the writing to be impressive in that regard because it's done in a very natural way. It's very easy for the game's objectives in your brain to override what's actually happening in the narrative. And by that, I mean, I'm looking for someone, okay, tell me what you want. You know, because that's what this game's all about. Like, the game design is me finding objects and giving them to the right people and eventually getting good loot out of it. But because it always weaves back into the narrative, into the Civil War, because it always weaves back into this very gripping world, I always find myself just getting lost in what these characters are saying. Again, it just feels like a very real human depiction of the ugliness of war in every facet. The only happy moments are when you crack the code or you help someone out who's really struggling and give them something to help get over their problem and see them change a little bit. But all of this that I'm talking about is done on your own. Like, every single bit of it, you figure out. And that's why it's not for everybody. For example, this game does not have a map. Got a little bit of a love-hate relationship with this one because, with respect to the developer's vision, it becomes tough to remember where everyone is. And that's with me busting out my notepad, by the way. I took like 3 pages of notes playing this game, and they're really helpful to take those notes. You're going to want to do it. You would really want to consider it, especially by the end of the game. And this game, as I'll talk about, does have something you can reference for information, but where it really starts to struggle a bit is when you get to a town and there's like 15 different buildings that you can enter. You're usually like running through towns and through a ton of different buildings until you go, oh, it's up this hill, around this corner here, and then through this specific entrance. Oh, there's the person I'm looking for. I don't think it would have hurt to give you a general map that even had fog of war that just gradually filled out as you explored. I also don't think it would have been a bad idea to just have this map update when you meet people of importance, that they then do get marked on your map. Not so that you can set waypoints, but just so you have reference of information that rewards the exploration and the heavy lifting you're doing. As you get deeper into the game, you're really going to want to have some help from your notepad or the game's tool set it gives you, which is also very helpful in the investigation section. But just one final note on the map, because in fairness, and again, in respect to the developer's decision, which I imagine was pretty tough to do, I got to play devil's advocate with myself, because there's also a world I could be sitting here saying, hey, I was pausing my game every 2 seconds to check my map. It took me out of it. So I could also see this being something that was cut in testing. It's just ultimately an imperfect part of the system that you could make arguments for either side of and either love or hate. I ended up learning to love it because I spent like 7 hours in a single zone, and that's where I was like, man, I just like Am I missing like one corner, one pathway? Like, where's the solution to this one thing in the main story? And I'll just say, for those who do get to the point, it's something in a basement. And I was like, what is the password for this? Like, I can't figure this out, only to realize, like, literally the game had it in front of me in that very room, like, from the moment I got in that building. I was just an idiot. There was another time that to get into an optional zone, there was a note I picked up at the very beginning of the game that had a code that let me get into this area. And I went, like, that's the type of stuff this game is asking of you. I sincerely recommend, if you do play this game, do not look up a walkthrough. Like, I know it's going to be a willpower test for some of y'all out there, but like, don't do it, man. It's not worth it. Like, even during the review process, they're like, we'll give you a walkthrough if you know. I'm like, hell no. Like, this is what makes the game tick. It's a game that expects you to pay attention. And yeah, if you're streaming in between a bunch of games, it's going to be tough to keep up with. That notepad's going to help you out a lot, which is why I recommend it. If you're just like a one game dude, a one game chick, you're going to have a great time here and you're really going to lock in. But they don't leave you with absolutely nothing. What you do get instead is an investigation tree. So as you find objects, as you find people, as you find places, these trees are all interconnected. You could click on them and explore different pockets of the web itself. Like, there's a lot here, and it's just webs within webs within webs. At first, I got like prototype web of intrigue flashbacks here and went, oh boy, this is going to be a lot. But it really does help a lot with quick references to information. Like, just a quick little look of, oh, you know, this person's over here. Okay, like, if you just know the town by name, given how good the draw distance is and the detail within the draw distance and like the memories you create by exploring, you'll likely sit there and go, okay, I know where X is. In a lot of ways, this is your quest log basically, but it's a more useful, interconnected quest log that kind of becomes a game of itself as you're kind of looking through it and just connecting all the different dots. So they don't leave you completely without any clue or reference to things you've discovered in the past. But that's enough about the story, because anything more would start to veer into spoiler territory. So let's talk a bit about gameplay, combat, that sort of thing, because this is one of those games where the narrative is the gameplay, but there is like actual combat. And yeah, it's a blender game. You're going to see a lot of ideas that are from other games just thrown into this one and turned into like a Souls-like narrative smoothie. So you have things such as a Pip-Boy-like device menu. Enemies are connected via umbilical cords, and the main character, with the way he's dressed, may as well be called Schmam, Schmort, or Schmidges. You know, just look at the fit, bro. I mean, there's your standard video game crafting and upgrading systems here. And then, yeah, a lot of the functionality of this game's combat is very Souls-like inspired. So I don't blame people for looking at this game and being like, there is no identity here. It's just a lot of things put together. And that is kind of fair when you look at the combat. Again, it's functional and it's good and it's enjoyable. It's just not wholly distinct. It's just a lot of ideas that you may like from other games thrown together here. So let's get into that Souls-like combat, because it's more like a Souls-like blender too. Like, there's a blender within the blender here at this point, because yeah, the camera, the lock-on system, this is very similar to what you've seen in a Dark Souls game, Bloodborne, the list goes on. Like, you've seen this before. Ironically, though, this is more welcoming than any other part of the game, despite the entire narrative structure and design being the opposite of that. Like, there's difficulty settings, there's a full-on checkpoint system. But yeah, I said blender earlier because they took the key pull system from Neo and tossed it in here as well. So for those who haven't played Neo, this is a game where as you're swinging away and you're using all of your stamina up, you'll see a quick flash with your character where you kind of twitch the block button. If you do that, you get a bonus that activates. But it's like a really cool reactivity system, and I haven't seen any other games borrow this element, but they took that from Neo, threw it in this game. It's a weird fit, but I love the key pulse in Neo, so that's here. Of course, they have parrying. There's parrying in like every game nowadays. This game has it. Enemies flash red, block at the same time. Parry window's very forgiving. You stagger them. You can use like an execution style move on them. It's very cinematic and cool. It's a Souls-like blender. You've seen all these ideas from different Souls games and throw them into one. Ultimately, the problem I end up having with the combat is simply the nature of it. Like, on its own, it's great. And what I'm about to say kind of doesn't matter. It's more like a philosophical thing, I guess, but still maybe worth saying just so you know how I feel about things. I love Souls-likes. It's one of my favorite genres. It also feels like a genre that's kind of broken the brain of gameplay designers out there, combat designers out there. Like this game, Hell Is Us, effectively turns into a hack and slash action RPG. And we've played many of those growing up. They don't need the kind of bones of a Souls-like game to be that, but yet it functions in a very similar way to that. And when it doesn't have the difficulty of a Souls-like game, Souls-like games aren't really, unless you're Sekiro, I think, and maybe a couple other exceptions, great because of like the combat itself. It's usually like the challenge. It's usually overcoming that challenge. But when you don't have that here, you just have some of the kind of jank of the combat system that you're inheriting all these traits from. It ends up being like an okay to good combat system, but you wonder why they didn't just go full crazy hack and slash. I think it actually would have added a little bit more to the game because, yeah, you get abilities that both you as a player character and your drone that helps you out can use. And a lot of these enemies are ending up turning into just whittling down these orbs that they're attached to. And many of them don't telegraph their attacks really well. So yeah, it just kind of turns into a hack and slash. You get your health and your stamina back anytime you key pulse or whatever they call it in this game. So it just becomes a lot of like mashing through enemy. Again, fun, enjoyable. Just given the game has such a strong identity on its narrative front, I feel like not leaning into the blender format for its combat could have helped it a little bit because it would have made the combat, I feel, just like a little bit better. But overall, it's still a good time. The lock-on system needs a bit of work. Like, there's a lot of times in this game, I'll hit the lock-on button, and I'll have a lot of time getting to the front of that row of like 5 enemies coming at me. The game can put up a challenge at times, but again, thanks to that key pull system, almost any damage you take, you'll get back. If you need to use any healing items, you have them in abundance. Like, it's a welcoming game. And again, I hope people don't misinterpret what I'm saying about Souls-like games having challenges and like this game needs to be a Souls-like. It's more like, why'd you inherit all these traits from a combat system that's not really that great unless you're Sekiro? If all you were going to turn it into was a hack and slash, like you may as well have gone all the way and just made this very punishing experience. But it felt like the compromise to kind of balance the game out a little bit more. Ultimately, it's still pretty unique and it's a fun time, and the narrative is really what you're here for. If what I'm talking about with story and progression sounds like something to be up your alley, you should check out Hell Is Us. It's great because it's a nice $50 game. It's a little bit easier to take a risk on compared to today's $70 standard. And you're supporting a developer that I imagine had to fight a massive uphill battle with this game. Like, I could only imagine what it was like sitting down trying to pitch this game to investors, and they're like, what? There's no waypoints, no guidance tools whatsoever. And then, you know, testing it and realizing what the challenges would actually be when making a game of this style. What I can say in support of its design decisions is that it doesn't feel like they just ran out of time and couldn't do these sorts of things. Like, oh, we were going to add a map, but we just didn't have time, but we're going to kind of market it like, you know, we meant to always do this. It feels like everything was done deliberately with this game and how its narrative is unpacked. So I really respect that. Ultimately, Hell Is Us is a pretty unique journey, and if you're into that, I think you'll really like it. Those are my thoughts on the game. I'm curious to get your thoughts down below, so fire away. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.